If I could introduce Bob Schaffer. Bob, if you'd come up. He's a great defender of education and a great defender of life. And I just want him to say a word for us.
Thank you very much. Just a few days left, friends. We've got an awful lot at stake, and I've been campaigning for a long time, about a year and a half, for the seat in the United States Senate that Wayne Allard is vacating and leaving behind. And polls show us a few points down. Still a lot of people in Colorado haven't made up their mind, and we need to help them make up their mind within the next week. And we've been in this place before. Wayne Allard told me just Monday, I was visiting with him, and I told him I was 5 or 6 points down back then, according to our polls, and he says, I was 12 points down the week before the election, and I won by 4. And Bill Owens was standing right in front of this, by the way, was at the John McCain rally down at the stock show. Bill Owens, governor, was right in front of us, and he heard what we were talking about. He turned around, he says, you know what, that sounds great. I was 9 points down before the election, and I ended up being the governor. So I thought, well, then we've got Udall right where we want him then, right? Now, my mom's Ukrainian, immigrated to the United States when she was a little girl. The story matters to me a lot. Her village in Ukraine, they immigrated through Canada. My mother came from Canada to the United States when she became a citizen. My grandparents' village in western Ukraine, most of the people there just left back in the early part of the last century when Soviet occupation started to roll in through their part of the country. Those that were unable to leave, the relatives that were left behind there, most of them are dead. They were either starved deliberately in the 30s with what the Ukrainians called the Holodomor, which was Stalin's deliberate starvation. Some of them went off to work camps and were never seen again. But my grandfather wanted to come to Detroit, Michigan, and make cars. He was told that was heaven on earth where you could work. And he and my grandmother worked in the auto plants in Detroit all their lives and raised my mom and her sister, my aunt. And that to them was all they wanted to achieve. Based on their experience, that was heaven on earth. They lived a good life, worked all their life, saved, put their kids through schools, and raised 2 daughters that are the most patriotic Americans you'll ever meet. And only in America can the son of somebody like that serve in the U.S. House of Representatives or consider running for the United States Senate. And I'm not going to forget that story. I see more decisions these days being made in Washington, D.C. that seem to be leading us in the direction of that country that my grandparents left. And the reason I'm running and the reason I know all of you are here is because you want a nation that looks more like the country that my grandparents came to. They could have gone anywhere. They could have gone anywhere, I suppose, to seek freedom, but the United States of America was that beacon of hope for them, and this is the place they wanted to be. And I'm not going to forget that story ever. When I am confronted with decisions that lead us either in the old direction or the new direction of freedom, I will choose freedom every time, and it is the key difference between the guy I'm running against and me. Now, I'm tempted to go on about issues of tax policy and bureaucracy and government, but just trust me, we probably all agree on these topics. But I want to go back to a point in our nation's history, and I'll finish with this. Many of you know one of my greatest American heroes of the Founding Fathers was Patrick Henry. March 23rd, 1775, he was confronted at that point in time in Richmond, Virginia, at St. John's Church, with much of the same talk that we're dealing with here in this election now. I think the stakes are just as high, by the way, now as they were back in his day. The question before the Virginia delegation, though, was whether Virginia would join some of the other colonists up in the north who had already started incursions with the British crown. They had already started moving toward independence. And Patrick Henry was recognized in that speech. You all know the end of it, give me liberty or give me death. You know that part. But somewhere in the middle are some other words that I want to share with you now, because the debate then was whether the Virginians should fight, whether freedom was really something they could achieve. And many others who had spoken that evening had tried to persuade the others that it was a hopeless cause and that peace with England was just the destiny of those American colonists and independence could never happen. The polls were against them, they said. They really were. There were only estimated about a third of the American colonists who were in favor of independence. The other third were friendly to the Brits. Another third just didn't care. Sounds a lot like the division in voters in Colorado right now. But Henry, when arguing against two previous speakers who said it was hopeless, said this. Pointed to them and he said, "Now, they tell us, sir, that we are weak, unable to cope with so formidable an adversary. But when shall we be stronger? Will it be the next week or the next year? Will it be when we are totally disarmed and when a British guard shall be stationed in every house? Shall we gather strength by irresolution and inaction? Shall we acquire the means of effectual resistance by lying supinely on our backs and hugging the delusive phantom of hope until our enemy shall have bound us hand and foot? Sir, we are not weak if we make a proper use of those means which the God of nature hath placed in our power. The millions of people armed in the holy cause of liberty and in a country such as that which we possess are invincible by any force which our enemy can send against us. Besides, sir, we shall not fight our battles alone. There is a just God who presides over the destinies of nations and who... Henry wasn't finished there. There is a just God who presides over the destinies of nations, who will raise up friends to fight our battles for us. The battle, sir, is not to the strong alone. It is to the vigilant, the active, the brave. Now, friends, I think I'm looking at the millions of people armed in the holy cause of liberty, and now is the time for us to find those who are vigilant and active and brave to step forward and make sure that the next 7 days in this election are ones that are met with everything we have to offer. If you have any part of your life left over to contribute to the safety and security and the future of our country, I ask you to volunteer it over the next 7 days. If you have anything left of your liberty to devote to the cause of justice and freedom and liberty in our country, I ask you to volunteer it and to profess it in the next 7 days. If you have anything left of your sacred honor, I would ask you to devote it to the holy cause of liberty for which we fight today. If you've not put a bumper sticker on your car yet, please do. If you don't have a yard sign in your yard yet, please do. If you haven't contributed yet, or if you can contribute more, please, Bob Schaffer for Senate.com, please do.